Welcome to the golf edition of Hooked on Sport. This is South Australia's Golf Wrap, where we uncover the stories, personalities and moments that define golf across South Australia and beyond. It's time to talk golf with sports commentator Ben Hook and state golf representative Sophie Hilditch.
Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hooked on Sport. An amazing week in golf, and there is no one who breaks the sport down better than my co-host Sophie Hilditch, who brings all of her expertise and insight. Soph, hello. What a week it's been.
Oh, such a fun week of golf, Hooky. I'm so excited to get down and start talking about it.
How are you? You well?
Yeah, I am well, actually, which I'm surprised at because I had a pretty busy weekend. We had the end of financial year celebrations. I come back from overseas trip and I'm straight back into drinking on a Friday night. It's quite fun.
Normally you're struggling with your health by about now after a fairly sizable weekend, but you're looking like you're in good spirits, unlike me.
Yeah, and I'm wearing the Hooked on Sport green, which I didn't actually realise until I hopped on screen, saw my video, and I thought, oh, that's a bit awkward. A lot of people don't like our green.
When I do the border, people won't know where the jumper ends and the outside of the shot begins. I've had a tough day today, Soph, I have to concede. It's been a pretty tough day. But I'll get it out in the open for all of our friends out there. You and I both have a good mate, man by the name of Peter Ormandy. And I don't know if I've ever declared this before, but Peter and I have a current wager going as to what he can get his handicap down to by the end of the year. I'm holding some money of his at even money that he can get to 14, and I'm holding some money of his at 25 to 10 that he can get to 12 and play off A grade by the end of the year. And he's been hovering around the 17, 18, 19, and I've been, counting my big pile of cash that I'll be holding of his at the end of the year. Well, I saw a message on the chat group today. He's gone and had 43 points, hasn't he? On a day when no one else did better than 37. So I'm feeling a little bit sick that maybe all this money I've not only counted, but starting to think about where I'm going to spend it, might be heading back to Peter Ormandy with some interest at the moment. So a tough day for me, following the golf scores.
That is a tough day. Peter Ormandy's been playing some solid. He went for a bit of a rough patch, but he seems to be coming out of it. And he's been a past A grader before. I'm pretty sure he played at least one round down at A grade. So I'm actually rooting for Peter Ormandy on this one. I really like when people start stealing money from you, Hooky.
The thing that annoys me is I really like Peter Ormandy too, and there is a part of me that thinks, it would be amazing if he achieved it. And he's that sort of mercurial guy, isn't he? He can play 25 terrible rounds and one or two brilliant ones thrown in amongst that. Well, he had a brilliant one today, so well done to Pete. And I'm feeling a little bit sick about my cash and whether it's heading your way. Enough about my stupid little bets. Let's think about something far more important, and that's Sophie Star.
Well, I'm normally going down the golf route, but I've taken a leaf out of the Ben Hook pamphlet, and I've actually gone Sam von Eenman, the Australian Paralympic table tennis player, who's recently returned to world number 1 in the para class 11 rankings, following his 4th gold medal of 2026 at the ITTF World Para Elite in Beijing. Just an amazing achievement, so I wanted to give him a shout out, a fellow South Australian. Incredible effort.
No, that is really good, Soph. And I actually thought that we'd both be talking about the Thunderbird, so it was interesting that you pivoted, and I thought I would pivot as well, because Jessie Moore, champion South Australian artistic gymnast, has gone to the Australian Championships. Now, he's off to the Commonwealth Games. He's Australia's number 1 gymnast, but he has underlined that with a remarkable 4 gold medals on individual apparatus and the all-around gold medal in the Australian Championships as well. I know his dad, Steve, been heavily involved in football, was CEO of Glenelg, was on the board at the Eagles. Lovely bloke and very proud of all of his kids. But yeah, Jessie is doing some pretty amazing stuff in the gymnastic space, and we're looking forward to seeing how he tracks in the Commonwealth Games. So he takes out Ben's best for the week. But Soph, we should rein our attention back into golf, because I've got to say I had a little bit of time on my hands yesterday afternoon, and I decided to wander the streets of North Adelaide, Strangways Terrace and surrounding streets, and I reckon I've stumbled across a few new little interesting things that we might share with our listeners over the next couple of minutes.
So have you managed to map out the North Adelaide golf course? I live about 2 seconds from the North Adelaide golf course, and even I haven't gone out and walked that.
Well, I do, yes. I know you're not far from there. You're very close to the North Course, which is being significantly reduced in size to make an allowance for the expansion, if you like, of the South Course. So a couple of things going on. So first of all, I went through the course and I sort of measured it up against landmarks of what they had on their map. And let's be honest, the maps are pretty rudimentary right now. We're not getting any really obvious ideals on what they're trying to talk about. But I reckon I've worked out that the course is going to be 6,655 metres, give or take. So this is just me using Google Earth and the measure instrument. So I'm just trying to look at where the tees are, where the greens are going to be. This is very, very rough, and I'm sure it'll come out completely different when we get to it. But I reckon I put enough effort into this that I reckon it's worth sharing. I reckon we're going to see a 6,655 metre course, or 7,320 yards. So that to me means it's not going to be long by men's professional standards. For the life of me, I can't work out if it's going to be a par 71 or a par 72. There's two par fives, the fourth hole and the ninth hole, that I reckon are pretty obvious on the front nine. But the back nine, I just cannot for the life of me work out where we're going to find two par fives. I suspect it'll be the 11th and the 13th, but at least one of them is going to be very, very short. We've got around about a kilometre of playing length across 11 and 13, which run all the way along War Memorial Drive on that western side of Montefiore Road or Montefiore Hill Drive, whatever the name of that is. So I think 11 and 13, possibly par fives, but I suspect par 71 for the professional men, a 7,320 yard course, which, as you would know, is pretty short by common standards. Couple of things I think are interesting, Soph. Firstly, we are going to have three very, very exhilarating tee shots. I think one is going to be one of them. I think 4 is going to be one of them, and 4 is going to be a completely brand new hole. So 4 will be a par 5 that'll run through the middle of the course. It'll start around about where the current tee block for the 16th is, and it will be a big downhill drop. It'll go over essentially where the two par 3s were, the 6th and the 5th. So people who've played North Adelaide South Course, I'm pretty sure, will be across this. And then it'll work down where the fairway of the fourth hole was, if you like, which was a hole that played, how would I say? It was played in the same direction as the third out towards the other end of the course. So this is going to run right through the middle of the course all the way along. I think that will be a spectacular hole. I reckon we're going to see a very, very wonderful 6th hole, which will be a dramatic tee ball that playing all the way down Montefiore Drive, which is right along. So they'll be out of bounds all the way along the left-hand side. And then I think the 10th will be the old elevated third tee that heads straight to the city. This is going to be the signature hole, and you can imagine the drones flying overhead and the big drop off down onto the lower part of the ground and then weaving through those tree lines. So I think they'll be beautiful. I think they will be amazing, fun tee shots to have. One will be good, but certainly for pretty sure 6 and definitely 10, these are going to be these dramatic tee shots. Probably a bit unfortunate that none of them will happen in the back 9 when most of the television viewers are going to be watching as we're playing professional tournaments. But I do think when we do get the opportunity, Soph, that we're going to get on a few of those tee blocks and just look forward to just pulling driver out, pinging it as high as far as you can and just watching it. You know, that exhilaration of playing from a really elevated tee block. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is always a little bit of fun. I reckon you might get some views from the city as well, which will be pretty cool, out looking back onto the Adelaide city, because I know from the first hole you can kind of see it's already a pretty outlook. But I think the fact that we're going to have quite a few elevated tees, I am excited for. And it does feel like you can just hit the ball for miles when that's happening.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A couple of other things that I thought were interesting, Soph. Firstly, and I actually listened to a guy called the golfing greenkeeper. His name's Steve Smith, not the cricketer, but someone different, who did talk about he saw some photos of some, mock-ups, computer-generated images of some of the fairways that he looks like are going to be a little bit elevated, and there'll be drop-offs into rough. Now, we've all heard about the incredible, when I say incredible, the 585 or give or take trees that are going to be removed. And I'll ask you this question, Soph, because I'm pretty sure you'll know the answer. If you take trees out big canopies of trees, what does that create?
More open space?
More open space, exactly right. And I think what we're going to potentially see here is some establishments like what we've seen at Glenelg and Royal Adelaide and Kooyonga, where opening up the open space and creating some sunlight will allow North Adelaide anyway, to sort of recreate some of the old original vegetation and flora that you would have expected around there. So I think that's going to be something to watch. And I know that the Greens and the environmentally minded people have been up in arms about losing the 585 trees, but I think there will be a payback for that, and that will be some re-establishment of some of the native flora that you would have expected to see in this place many, many years ago before there was ever a golf course built. And all of these trees that were put in, a lot of them in the 70s and 80s, that really certainly aren't natural to that particular environment. A couple of other things I would point out, and I think this point's been made before, Soph, is that all par threes run in almost exactly the same direction. And I was using a compass to work this out, and I reckon they range between 126 degrees, so that's basically heading a little bit east of southeast, and 150 degrees, which runs a little bit south of southeast. But all four of them are playing from northwest to southeast, and I think that is a design flaw. The one thing I didn't understand is why the par 3 and the par 4 for the North Adelaide course, which is the third and the fourth, have kind of been flipped around. So that is traditionally an uphill par 4 and a downhill par 3, but they're making that an uphill par 3 and a downhill par 4, and that means that par 3 will also play in the same way. So for those of you who've played the North Adelaide North course, the first runs along Strangways Terrace there. The second is that one that runs long along Memorial Drive. The third hole plays up the hill, sort of a shortish par 4 with a big tree right in the middle of the fairway. And then the fourth was a par 3 that came back down the hill. Now, that par 3 and that par 4 have been flipped around, which means all four of the par 3s run in the same direction, which is unusual. The other thing I thought that was unusual is that all 5 of the holes that run along the boundary fence will all have the out of bounds to the left-hand side. So in the current configuration of the South course, a few of those holes run in different directions. So some, the out of bounds is on the left, and some in particular on Memorial Drive, it runs along the right. But you're going to see 6, 11, 13, 18, and there's one other that I can't think of right now, that'll all play along the boundary line with the out of bounds on the left-hand side. So another one of those quirks that I think, if they had the opportunity, and obviously they're working with the existing playing corridors, I understand the challenges around that, but that would have been one thing I would have loved to have seen, a bit of variation. So it's almost a bit like Kingston Heath, Soph, where you've got that sort of outer loop and the inner loop. And I'll be interested to see if that becomes a real factor with the way the course is structured. But it is interesting that all of the outer holes that run along the boundary line, they'll all play with the outer bounds to the left hand. I've got to say, what I did really garner from it, and I'm not convinced it's going to be a great golf course, but I do think there's going to be enough fun and enjoyment, and there'll be enough of that in and amongst the golf course to be able to say, yeah, you know what, this is worth going and playing. And I know the Premier has talked about trying to keep the cost down, and I think that will be a challenge going forward. But I do feel like this is going to be the sort of place that if it's under $100 to play, find that hard to believe if it is, but if it is under $100 to play, it's going to be you're going to get a great 4 hours worth of entertainment for your $100.
Yeah, I'm still really excited for it. I've got a few concerns, but I think everyone has concerns, and every single time they completely redevelop a golf course, well, not completely, because like you said, they're keeping the existing corridors, you always have concerns. Like even when Glenelg redid their 18, there's heaps of people that were against it. And us ourselves, I'd be surprised if you said you were 100% when Glenelg announced that they were doing that, thinking this is going to be a great thing. And it's turned out awesome, in my opinion. So look, I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by North Adelaide, but I'm actually really excited for it. I think having a better course in the centre of the city is something to be really special. I think it'll be great for people flying over to Adelaide for business, and I think it's going to be great whenever we have some sort of sporting event or any sort of event. There's actually a golf course right in the centre that people can drop by, have a round, and if it's under $100, that would be absolutely incredible. But I think it's going to be sitting more around that 120, 130.
Yeah, and I think they'll probably be in excess of 200 for interstate visitors, and look, 120, 130 for a local, I think would be Still remarkable value. So if the one thing that I think is probably a great shame, and look, Liv may well still get up and we could see Liv in 2028, who knows? And if Liv was to be able to bring the same sorts of crowds that it could, maybe the Australian Open could. But there is one thing I've always thought about. Whatever the layout of this new championship course at North Adelaide is, I would drop one of the par threes out and I would play one par three in Adelaide Oval. So I would set up a tee block in one corner of the ground and put the green. So I'd probably put the tee block in front of the scoreboard and put the green in front of, somewhere between the southern and the western stands. It doesn't need to be anything too spectacular as a green, but I think, could you imagine 20,000 people at Adelaide Oval watching a par three as groups come through all the way around? I reckon that would be something really amazing. Unique for South Australia, and it's right there. Not difficult to cart them all in and cart them all back out for the rest of the course. So maybe drop out the 8th is probably the closest one to North Adelaide. The 8th will sort of play in that southeastern corner of the ground. Drop out the 8th par three and send them over and play one in the middle of Adelaide Oval in front of 20,000 people.
Look, I think it would be spectacular, but I think you're dreaming a little bit here. I don't imagine seeing a bunch of golfers getting carted over to Adelaide Oval from North Adelaide to play the one hole. But look, I'm here for if it happens, Hooky.
I just think that's a distinct possibility. You talk about stadium golf courses. We've got a stadium hole right there. Talk about stadiums. TPC Deer Run. Don't know if you'd call it a stadium, but it's actually not. It's an interesting golf course. It was an interesting tournament, I thought. Chris Gotterup has won by 2 strokes. Did you get an opportunity to have a look at this morning, Soph? Because it was thrilling what Chris Gotterup produced, 9 under 62 in the final round.
I think all the golf this week was thrilling, but this was just kind of the icing on the cake for me. I did get up and I did get to manage to watch it. I mean, that 9 under 62 was absolutely spectacular. I think it was 5 back leading into that final round, nowhere really in sight, and he went a bogey-free 9 under. I felt a bit sorry for Ben Coles, though, needing the birdie to win on 18 or just the par to get into a playoff, and he dunks his approach shot straight into the water and then 3 putts for a double bogey. It was a bit depressing and a bit deflating, but I mean, seeing Gotterup, his 3rd PGA victory this season, which is absolutely incredible, and he's really shooting up, and he's looking like people are starting to talk Ryder Cup already, which I always think Ryder Cup maybe a little bit too early, considering we've still got another year to go. We've still got to wait for the Solheim, but he's definitely in those talks, and I think the captain will be looking at him for sure. I also like the story. His brother on the bag of his caddy's wife, currently pregnant and about to give birth or already given birth. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I always like the family element, and they always get a little bit more emotional, and you seem to get a little bit more out of them in the interview when there's some sort of family connection on the bag or a family member watching. So I thought that was exciting. And I'm a massive Max Homer fan, and he's been having an absolute stinker of a season. I think he's only had 1 prior top 10 leading up to this, so I was really excited to see him finally have a very solid round of that 7 under. I think it was 8 birdies and 1 bogey. So I was pretty keen to see him come in at the second. He finished on 19 under, I think, and Gotterup was already in the clubhouse, so he wasn't really in it, but that was still an exciting result for Max Homer.
Yeah. So Chris Gotterup, he started in a tie for 12th. He began his round over an hour before the final group. So he spent a long time on the range just wondering if it was good enough or if it got him into a playoff. So how about this? Since May 2024, Scotty Scheffler has won 10 times, Rory has won 5 times, and now Chris Gotterup has won 5 times, including his defence, which will start this week, of the Genesis Scottish Open. So we head over to the UK for these 2 events, the Scottish Open, and then, of course, the Open Championship the week after. Now, that was at Royal Portrush last year, and he finished top 5, I think, Chris Gotterup. He's only 26. He's the world number 7. So, yeah, I understand your little asterisk alongside sort of throwing him into the Ryder Cup mix because it's a long way away. But my goodness, he looks like one of the best players in the world. The other thing I love about him, Soph, and probably is just evidenced by what we've talked about, is he does seem to have a versatility of game. A lot of these young, strong American guys tend to have a big drive. Wherever it goes, it doesn't matter. We'll wedge it onto the green and try and make a putt. But he does have the ability to flight the ball low, to manage wind, to manage alternative conditions. He didn't play well at Shinnecock Hills, and that was maybe a little bit of a surprise to me in hindsight, but he is just someone who I think we're going to be watching for some time to come. Ben Coles, I can only reiterate the point that you made about how sorry we feel for him. That's twice now on the PGA Tour, Soph, that he's had the lead going on to the 72nd hole, and twice he's made 6. So he did the same thing at the CJ Cup Byron Nelson 2 years ago. That last hole was a par 5, but he was the only player to bogey it that day. He made a bogey 6 on that hole and lost that tournament, and he's done it as well here at TPC Deer Run for the John Deere Classic. But congratulations to Chris Gotterup. He was sponsor exempt into this tournament in 2022, and he was determined to pay them back by fronting up and playing. This isn't a signature event. It is the week before the Scottish Open. So the fact that he was determined to step up and still play this event is a bit of a thank you for getting that sponsors exemption 4 years ago. And then he burst into tears when he found out that he'd won from there on the practice range. So it was a remarkable watch this morning, Soph, and I'm glad you could share your insight with us on that. Just take us through what happened last night. The BMW International was played in Munich, and that was just as thrilling a finish as well.
I think it was even more thrilling, in my opinion. I can't believe you're handing this one to me. The WhatsApp group was going off with Wallace, you and me, with you just talking about the DP World Tour. So
I was worried I was
surprised.
keeping you guys awake because it was getting late when that one finished.
Well, I'm surprised I'm getting the honour, but that was incredible to watch. It's a 39-year-old rookie on the DP World Tour. Now, you don't normally hear 39 years and rookie right next to someone's name, but Michael Hollick, with a birdie on 17 with a 5-iron, and then an eagle on the 18th with a 5-iron again, I think. But this time he put it to about 15 feet and sunk the putt dead centre. It was absolutely incredible. It's his maiden DP World Tour victory, so he was equally as emotional as you can imagine Gotterup was, but potentially even more. Interesting story. He said he hung up the clubs about 4 years ago and actually started coaching. And it's almost like coaching brought him back into the game and made him love it again, going back to those basics and seeing other people start to enjoy the game and relaxing a little bit. So, look, that was an incredible victory. The 18th hole was just insane. That 5-iron out of the rough, to be able to control the rough and control the bounce. And to be fair, only just cut the corner on the drive and then only just got over the bunker on 18. It kind of makes you realise there is a little bit of luck sometimes in golf. I know it's not completely luck. It's a lot of skill to know those numbers. But I was thinking, just a little bit off, and that's in the bunker, and he's probably not the position that he was in. But incredible to watch. And I thought I should mention, I know you love sponsor exemptions. And when I first went up to look up the news for the DP World Tour, I thought you'd enjoy this one when I saw the lead story was Brad Dolk, who was stepping away from the good boys. And he'd got a sponsor exemption and finished T30. And I thought, there's no way Hooky is going to let this not go unheard. He's going to be furious that there's a YouTube golfer in the DP World Tour.
He was in the lead after round 2, or he was certainly on the leaderboard, top 2 or 3. And there was a remarkable mix of outrage, which, to be fair, that's probably what I would have shared. Mind you, I mean, if he had have gone, the fact that he's finished T33 for a start is an incredible performance. And for him to be right up the pointy end halfway through the tournament, that is incredible. And look, this is an emerging market, the YouTube golf. And the story about Michael Block, which we won't get to today, but that's all played out with Grant Horvat's crew and the YouTube tour, or whatever. I can't remember what it's called now, Soph, which a couple of my mates are very, very keen on watching. It's not sort of for me, but we need to accept this is an emerging market. What Bryson's doing with his Break 60 YouTube stream, all of them are fascinating. And the fact that now we've got one or two of these guys who are competing in and amongst the real genuine professionals is pretty amazing. I think one of the Bryan brothers has qualified for the Open Championship as well. I reckon Wes Bryan missed out by a stroke, but his brother, I reckon, is in the Open Championship. So, this is an emerging market that I guess we'll have to keep an eye on. Jack Buchanan, the South Australian, missed the cut in that tournament. But congratulations to Michael Hollick. And Henny Duplessis, who's been really unlucky this year, he's had a couple of results where he's just been nutted at the finish line. He did make a bit of a hash of the final hole, par 5, blasted it over the fairway into the bunker, sort of an offset tee shot, put it into the bunker right, thinned it out of the bunker and caught the lip of the bunker, and it was so lucky that it just flew over there was a creek that ran across the fairway, then couldn't get it up and down from 80 or 90 yards. But I think under normal circumstances, Henry du Plessis would be considering that was at least a birdie hole, and he gets into a playoff there, an eagle, and he wins by one. But the par just wasn't good enough to get it done. Let's turn our attention to the women's game. The Ladies European Tour was in Belgium, and it was so close yet so far for one of our Aussies, Soph.
Oh, yeah, so disappointing. I saw on Saturday that Kelsey Bennett had the lead by 2 shots, and our listeners will know Kelsey Bennett very well because she was a strong contender on the ALPGA this year, or this season, I should say. But she ended up finishing second, and it was to Carolina Shikara who finished with a 12 under, which is her first LET Tour win, which is incredible. I always kind of like these stories as well. She actually shot a course record in a second round 65, had a shocker third round 73, and had a bit of a bounce back story. So as much as I'm upset for Kelsey, I think for Carolina, that's an amazing comeback. I was rooting for Kelsey though. She had a chip in on 16 for birdie, and I thought, here we go. We're a little bit back in it. We've had a little bit of a rocky 18 holes. That drive has been going off a little bit. But then, unfortunately, Carolina birdied 17 and it was already in her hands, basically. She had to really butcher 18 not to get that win. But I found it quite interesting. Kelsey Bennett posted on Instagram that as soon as she'd finished in T2, she's straight into an airport and she's straight heading off to the Evian Championship, which I can't wait to talk about.
Yeah, so Carolina Chikara wins. She's the sister of Eugenio, who has won a couple of times on the DP World Tour and looks like he's headed to the PGA Tour. And who knows, maybe Carolina will be heading across to play in the US as well. So congratulations to her. But yeah, a bit disappointing that Kelsey Bennett got nutted. Kristen Rudgley from Western Australia finished in a tie for 7th. So if you've talked about the Evian Championship, it gets underway on Thursday. It's played at the Champions Course at the Evian Resort Golf Club in France. It is the 5th major for the women. It's certainly really a major only by dint of the fact that the prize money is pretty good. Have you had a chance to sort of study this course? It's not renowned as being one of the great courses, but I mean, we like it because Grace Kidd managed to funk her way to a remarkable birdie and then an eagle in a couple of playoff holes last year. But just tell us what you know about this golf course.
Yeah, look, I obviously know it quite well because the Evian always returns back to the Evian, funny enough. It's always there, so you get to know it quite well. It's on the LET Tour as well, so a lot of Australians only played it probably only about 4 weeks ago now. So hopefully some of those LET Tour players know it quite well. But look, it's spectacular to look up. It's set in hilly terrain, but the problem with being set in hilly terrain means it's quite a Mickey Mouse course off the tee. You have to be really accurate. There's heaps of slopes, so you can be slightly off and your ball's completely gone and you're in a terrible position. Lots of complaints about their greens. The contouring is quite extreme, which means there's a lot of weird breaks in them. Your approach shots have to be quite accurate, or sometimes you can't even go towards the pin. You're having to go away from it. The other thing that there's lots of complaints about is there's so much space between the holes, basically because it's all set within the hilly terrain, which means these players are walking, hundreds of meters to get to the next tee block. For a spectator watching on site, I've heard it's just an absolute nightmare and really quite struggling to watch. As someone watching it on TV, it actually looks quite enjoyable, quite fun. I'm sitting on my couch, quite happy. It's in France, sounds great, might eat a baguette. For the players, it looks quite stressful. But to be honest, it does always bring a really interesting finish. It's always very exciting. You don't really know what's going to happen. And I mean, we just have to look at the Grace Kim victory to know there was about 10 contenders on that leaderboard throughout that last 18 holes. It was extremely exciting due to all this contouring. And do you know what? It's actually quite a fun major to watch, even though it is the 5th major and most people don't want to call it a major, Hooky.
Take us through the favourites. The defending champion, of course, is Grace Kim. I imagine you're going to have her in there somewhere amongst a couple of the other Aussies. But if you're a betting woman, and I know you're not, unlike myself and Peter Orminator, where would your money be going?
Well, look, favourites, you can't not mention Nelly Corder. She's world number 1 and playing incredible. She had her D game at the KPMG and lost top 10, I still think. She kind of fought herself way back in the 4th round, but she played horrendously for Nelly Corder. So I think Nelly Corder has to be up there. But my pick is Celine Boutier, the French woman. She won back in 2023. And I just really like her game for this. She's not the biggest hitter, but she's super accurate and super patient. And that's actually who I would have my money on if I was a betting girl, but I'm not. So don't take my word for it. But Celine Boutier is kind of who I'm looking at. I'm also looking at Lottie Woad, though, who's been playing absolutely incredible golf in her rookie year on the LPGA. She's definitely someone to look out for. She didn't have her best showing at the last major, but she is insane. She's powerful off the tee. And I think she has played the Evian. She would have played the Evian before when she was number 1 world amateur, and I think she performed in it as well. So Lottie Woad for me is someone to look out for, even when we're leading into the Women's Open as well.
So her professional career is shorter than our podcast partnership, Soph. So if we start seeing major champions who only became professionals after we started, we know we've been banging on for a long time. Who do you think will be the leading Aussie at the end of the week?
I'm going Minjee Lee. I find it really hard not pick her. She, again, I think she didn't make the cut at the last major, but that's on the top of my head. She might have. I can't remember if it was both Hannah Green and her that didn't make the cut. But look, I'm happy to be fact-checked on that one. Hooky, even you going on your computer right now and fact-checking me, that's fine.
You keep talking.
Minjee Lee won in 2021, and back last year, when I was watching this Evian Championship, Grace Kim wasn't even in the forefront of my mind as someone that I thought would get the win. I thought she looked like she was heading for a top 10, but I did not think she was getting the win. It was the Minjee Lee who I thought we might be getting an Australian win. She faltered a little bit towards the end, but at the same time, I mean, Grace Kim kind of just went on fire and had an incredible finish with that eagle on 18, which I'm sure we were about to go and talk about. But so for me, Minjee Lee, accurate with her irons, very good at chipping, and an incredible putter when that putter is hot. So it's Minjee Lee for me. I think she's going to be the lead Aussie.
And as we could only expect, Soph, off the top of your head was exactly right. Both Hannah Green and Minjee Lee missed the cut at the KPMG Women's PGA. Just relive, and I remember talking through it with you. You were watching it live in real time. Just take us through Grace Kim's playoff last year when she took on Gino Titicul in that remarkable series of events.
It feels quite amazing. I think this was one of my first podcasts is when Grace Kim had just won the Evian. So it feels kind of full circle to be back here after 12 months and you're still having me. And I'm in the Hooked on Sport green. I'm that excited that I'm still on this podcast. But that was insane. She didn't come out of nowhere, but I feel like she did just because she wasn't that well known of a name, and now she kind of is a bit more of a household name with a major win and a bit more confidence as well. She kind of just gleams that confidence a little bit more, and you can never really count her out. And a lot of the majors, she has been starting a bit slower. Even in the Aussie Open, she started really slow for the first 3 rounds, but then all of a sudden put herself in a top 10 position and kind of had that backdoor top 10. But that was absolutely incredible. Eagled the 18th hole with a hybrid as her approach shot onto this par 5 with a bit of a creek running along the side of it. Put it to about maybe 5 foot to get into a playoff. In the playoff, has the same club in her hand, dunks it into that creek, and then that incredible chip in from the rough for birdie to then get herself into a second playoff hole, which she then has to stand over on her approach shot with the exact same hybrid, where she'd previously just hit this horrendous, just
Blocky cut,
blocky cut thing straight into the water, and she puts it to about 15 feet and drains the putt for eagle and walks off with her first ever major win. Just an incredible finish. So many excited faces. The Aussies running onto the green. I don't think anyone quite knew what to do. I don't think Grace knew what to do. So I'm looking forward to seeing Grace defend her title here. She's playing really well at the moment. I was a bit worried about her at the beginning of the season, but she's really coming into her own. She's having some stronger finishes on the LPGA. And I think, look, the limelight is going to be on her, but it's not going to be extreme, I don't think. I think the way that Nelly Corder has been playing, Nelly Corder is still going to be that lead story. I think Gina Titicul is also going to be another lead story. We're wanting her to get a major, and everyone's talking about the fact she doesn't have a major under her belt, even though I think she was the lead money winner on the LPGA for the last 2 years, and everyone's thinking, well, how come you can win on all these courses that are quite soft and easy and it's a birdie fest, but as soon as we put you on something tough, you're not doing anything and you're not making cuts? So I think those are going to probably be the 2 lead stories, and Grace might still be a bit in the backseat, which seems silly considering she's the defending champion, but I think for Grace that's a really good thing. But Ben, we have...
Go on.
Ben, we have some Aussies in this field. It's incredible. We've
Yeah.
got 8 of them.
I was just about to make the point, and you'll know this far better than me, but it feels like with Australian women's golf at the moment, it's hard to know where to look because there is a new one emerging out of the clouds, Kelsey Bennett, and she's not emerging. I mean, she's been around the mark for a couple of years now, but I think she's going to be a threat here. Robin Choi is starting to show something on the LPGA. We've seen Cassie Porter really contending in tournaments. Karis Davidson was right in at the pointy end of the KPMG a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, we haven't even talked about Hannah Green and Minjee Lee yet, who are the two flag bearers for Australian women's golf. So you'll be able to identify it far better than me. But it does feel like that we come as a group, as a real threat heading to France in 3 days' time.
Well, a massive threat. And you've forgotten Gabby Ruffles, who actually finished T10 last year, and she's in the field again with that T10 exemption. So, look, it's 8 Aussies. I think they're actually all 8 really strong contenders. I can't believe we really haven't spoken about Karis Davidson yet because she's been massively contending the last 2 majors, a major which she only just got in, quite literally, in the US Open, and all of a sudden she's our lead Australian for the first 3 rounds and playing incredible golf. I think her game really suits this. She's just played with Nelly Korda 2 rounds in a row, so she's going to be used to the fans now. She's probably going to be wondering where they are, thinking after playing with Nelly Korda, the way that Nelly fans just swarm around Nelly. But I think it's really exciting for our Aussie girls, and I can't believe, like you said, we haven't really spoken about Hannah Green. I don't think we're going to have time to speak about Hannah Green, which seems extreme, but I'm really excited. I don't really know who... It was hard to pick my lead Aussie. I was really tempted to pick Karis the way she was playing. Grace has been playing great. Cassie Porter didn't have a good KPMG, but another person that I've been so impressed with. But look, I'm still sticking to my guns. I'm going Minjee Lee. I just think her game really suits this course.
Yeah, fair enough, Soph. Talk about people that you know and know well. Reagan Denton was back in action. And the North and South, I beg your pardon, the North and South Women's Amateur, it's played at Pinehurst numbers 2 and 4. So just that alone, Soph, imagine teeing it up at Pinehurst number 2. That would be pretty spectacular. How did Reagan fare over there in the US?
Well, she finished T7 through the stroke rounds and unfortunately just missed out on round 1 and didn't quite advance to the next stage, but still an incredible showing for Reagan Denton. I mean, her stroke player performance, which we know that's what most golf tournaments are with a T7, is so incredibly impressive. I know she's just spent the week with Kerry Webb, so I'm sure she's still riding a bit of that high, and I'm excited to see her have a good finish after that as well.
And Ellis Gaysbrook as well, very similar position. I think finished a little bit further back in the stroke play, but then bombed out in the first round of the match play. But they were both building up towards the US Women's Amateur, which they're exempt into, and looking forward to seeing them. That's the first week in August, so still a couple of weeks ahead of us. So they'll be there for a little bit of time to go yet. So for last week, we had our focus on first holes around South Australia. It's time to turn our attention to second holes. We're going to make this a little bit simpler this time. I just want you to give me your best 4 second holes around South Australia. Now, I've got mine penciled in as well, but we'll call this Mount Rushmore. So if you had a Mount Rushmore of South Australian second holes, what would those 4 be?
Look, I'm going to go Kooyonga, the second hole. I absolutely love it. I think it's a really risk-reward hole. You can take a shorter club off the tee and not take on those bunkers on the left. It's a dog-leg little par 5, but it's definitely really reachable in 2. So it's actually quite an easy birdie and kind of makes you feel a bit comfortable in your round before you then hit the tricky par 3. I think it's quite... Well, I actually really like a par 5 as a second hole. You can easily just make a par and you're a little bit frustrated with yourself because you're thinking maybe I should have warmed up a little bit better and I should really be birdieing this hole. And it's, I think, a comfortable start to a round, and I really think your first few holes should be mixed with a little bit of comfortable but also just a snatch of tricky when you're hitting about that 3rd and 4th hole. So I'm a massive fan at Cooey's second hole. Am I just keep on going here for my next
You keep
4?
on going, but I'm just going to say one thing. You have alienated a large proportion of our audience and your co-host when you described it as an easy birdie. That is not a language we speak, most of us, Soph. I know that you've got talent up here and, this is not a visual platform, but I'm below the bottom of my screen here. But yeah, easy birdies is not a language that most of us talk, but go on. Kooyonga 2, great start.
It's not easy. We've seen poor Steph Kyriakou have about a 10 on that hole with, a
Yes.
couple of duck hooks and one absolute push out to the right. So, look,
But
it's
there
not
was
easy.
Jets in danger from a few balls with the left Kyriakou's club. They were
Oh, that
heading straight to
poor
Adelaide
girl.
Airport.
Yeah, but anyway, look, I'm actually then heading all the way down to Robe. I absolutely
Nice.
love the Robe second hole. Dogleg left, par 4. Maybe I'm just liking the dogleg lefts as my second holes, but
You,
I
you,
think it's
you
a
like a
really
nice
good
little draw off the tee.
little draw off the tee. It suits my shot shape. Look, you've got OB if you hit your ball too straight. You've got some absolute shrub on your left if you try to take the corner on a little bit too much. And then you have an elevated green. You can't see where your ball's landing. You have to pick that right club. You have to be confident. But as always, like I said, I like a bit of a softer second hole. And there's a massive bailout out left to that green if you're feeling at all a little bit uneasy about your approach shot. From there, I'm heading to the vines. Like I said, I do like a dog leg left. It's another one. It's a par 4. I can choose to hit a shorter club off the tee, or if I want to take on that dam on the left, I can hit driver. But I find this a really tricky green approach. You often have a wedge in your hand, or if you're a bigger hitter, you don't even have a wedge. You normally have about a sand wedge just chipping on. But it seems to just run so quick on that green and it falls off straight off the back and either side. And it's a really tricky little hole. But at the same time, you know what? I'm going to say it. It can be a little bit of an easy birdie if you have a good wedge game as your second hole and maybe your fourth or fifth shot of the day. And then I'm going to Mount Osmond, the par 3. I don't often like par 3s early on in my round, but for some reason, it gives me a bit of confidence when I can't see the hole and all I'm hitting at is just a blanket blind shot and I've got no idea where my ball went. But I also like the fact that it's got that bank up the left. So I've got something to bail out to.
Yep.
And if you're at all a little bit shaky, you can hit a bit of a just a little domey draw thing and you'll be absolutely fine. And have at least a chip or a putt at the hole. So I think it's a good starting hole. I have seen some funny things happen on that hole as well, like balls going over the back and we're all looking for it, trying to find it, and some hole-in-ones as well when it's gone straight into the middle of the cup, yet we're all looking out of the back because
Over
no
the
one's
back.
ever even thought to check the hole because, by God, could it
Can't
even
be.
go in there? Can't be there as your second hole of the day. So I've actually gone Mount Osmond par 3 for me, Ben, but I'm keen to hear yours.
Yeah, no, so, well, look, Mount Osmond, I think they've done some work on that hole in the last 3 years and they've improved that hole out of sight. Some similarities here. I put in Ranella, the Vines of Ranella as well. I think that's a great second hole with the dam on the left, closer to it, better angle you get into that hole. I think it's excellent architecture. Grange East is my tier 1 preferred second hole. So again, some good architecture where you're trying to drive it as close as you possibly can or over that left-hand bunker. And the closer you take on that left-hand bunker and take more risk on the first shot, the tee shot, the better the angle in you've got to that second green on approach. If you bail out to the right, you've got a very, very difficult shot to an offset green coming over that bunker. So I think that hole is really well laid out. I also like the second at Lady Bay. Now, it's a toughish par 4, certainly when measured against the opening par 4, which is a fairly gentle, friendly start. It's got that sort of waist area running along the left-hand side, so there's always some danger out there. Again, another hole that moves right to left, but I think that's a really wonderful hole. And then the last one I've thrown in, Soph, is the second at Sandy Creek. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, God, which one is the second at Sandy Creek? Because they have moved around the configuration of the course. So do you remember, it used to be about the 11th, I reckon, that was a
Mhm.
par 3 that played slightly downhill that was in the middle of the course, a gorgeous par 3, nice elevated tee block that's in the middle of that eastern section of the course, if you like, plays slightly downhill, big green, beautifully bunkered, lovely aspect. That was my number 4 of my Mount Rushmore. So not a bad little mix. I think if you played all load of them, you'd have, well, there's only 7 because we've picked the same one twice, but you'd have a bit of fun playing all of those, Soph.
Well, on the sounds of things, we're gonna have to learn one shot shape off the tee, and we'll be a champion at all of these second holes. I can't believe we've all gone down the route of a little dog leg left. It seems to be popular for the second hole.
Is there something in the fact that maybe off the tee you hit right to left and as a left-hander I also hit right to left? We might have to start to think about which holes that maybe suit people other than ourselves.
Nah, these are our top 4, Hooky. I didn't hear it's someone else's top 4. I hit a draw off the tee. So
Yeah,
therefore, my favourite holes tend to be right to left.
if you don't like our 4 and you want to choose your own, well, don't argue with us. Just go and get your own podcast. That would be my advice. So I've come up with a new game. It is called Who Am I? I am going to be a golf hole in South Australia, a relatively well-known golf hole. I'm going to give you clues. And as we go along, I want you to try and unlock what hole this hole actually is.
So just so we're clear, we're not doing second holes anymore. It's any hole in South Australia. You're saying you've got hundreds of holes within South Australia that you're wanting me to guess.
And with someone with as much expertise and insight as you have, I reckon you won't have too much trouble working this out. So it's any hole on any course in South Australia, but I can assure you, whichever hole I'm picking here, it has enough design features and is well known enough that you're not going to have too much trouble working this out before I run out of clues. So this is our new game. It's called Who Am I? Soph, who am I? I am a par 3 measuring 152 metres from the blue tees and 124 metres from the red.
Name me a fair few holes here, Hooky. You're going to have to give me another one.
Yeah, it's a shortish par 3. I'm on the front 9, but I'm not the first par 3 you play on this course. Just keeping an eye on you while I'm trying to read these clues, just seeing if you're starting to twig. I'm the index 13 hole for both women and men. So on paper, at least, I'm not considered one of the toughest tests on the course.
Unusual to be the same rating for both men and women.
It is unusual. And I think they've just changed around their ratings, their indexes on this particular golf course that I won't give away. I nearly gave it up, but I was checking the indexes and they have been adjusted recently, but I think that's right. I think 13 for both women and men. Now, here we go. I play over a sandy hollow, this quite sharp valley to a beautifully contoured green, a green that has 2 distinct tiers. Now, point number 6. Come up short and you're almost certain to be rejected by a very, very steep false front. You're seeing some nods here.
Yeah, I think I've played this whole Hooky.
You would have definitely played it.
No, I'm not gonna embarrass myself. I'm just gonna ask for one more clue, but I think unfortunately you might have been watching me play some finals recently and saw me have an absolute nightmare on this hole, and you thought, yeah, we'll bring some PTSD just for Sophie on her Monday evening.
I didn't have my knife out trying to stab you in the back as we shared this. I must admit, I don't think I have seen you play this hole, but I know you would have played it. 2 bunkers on this hole, Soph. Big one front left and a smaller one at the back. I can assure you, if you miss me long into the rear bunker, getting up and down becomes one of the most difficult shots on the course, and I've seen plenty of people from that back bunker roll it off the front and all the way down to the bottom of that valley. You never go yet?
Yeah, it's a no-go zone for a back pin on this hole, Hooky. I know it very well. I've been in that back bunker. I've been in that front bunker. I've been about everywhere on this golf course apart from the green. I think I've only ever had one birdie putt in my life on this hole. I can't believe it's ranked 13th. That's just ridiculous. But I know Reagan Denton likes this hole very much. It's the 7th hole at Kooyonga for sure.
Absolutely spot on, Soph. Yes, Reagan Denton did have a hole-in-one on the 7th at Kooyonga in the recent Women's Australian Open. Well done. Congratulations. I knew you wouldn't have too much trouble with that. I might just up the degree of difficulty for you a little bit next week. But yeah, we'll play that each week. Who am I? And of course, all of the listeners can play along as well, see if they can beat Sophie to the punch. But congratulations, you got it in one. Took you about 7 or 8 clues, not too bad. The 7th at Kooyonga, one of the great par 3s in South Australia. So that wraps us up. Plenty to talk about. We'll have plenty to talk about next week as well, because we'll wrap the Evian and then we'll be looking towards the Open Championship for the men at Birkdale. Remember the last winner at Birkdale?
I can't actually, not off the top of my head, Hooky.
Jordan Spieth. Who would have thought 9 years on? You can imagine all of the stories about Jordan Spieth we're going to be putting up with over the next fortnight. And hasn't that career just come to a bit of a screeching halt? So, always a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Have a great week. We'll see you again on Monday.
Hooky, thanks so much. Have fun watching the Evian.
With the last putt sunk, that's a wrap on this golf edition of Hooked on Sport. Thanks for listening. Help us meet more golfers just like you by following us and leaving a review. We look forward to your company on the next golf edition of Hooked on Sport.